Hello there, and welcome to Thank the Maker, a podcast about heroes, princesses, scoundrels, hokey religions, ancient weapons, and all things Star Wars. I'm Adam Russell.
Hey, I'm Jason Chiodo.
And I am Mike Forster. Adam, that's an interesting background. What the heck is going on there?
It's a big room, dude. It's my personal dressing room. I asked for 4,000 square feet. They gave it to me. There's so much room for activities.
And the only thing you have to put up with is multiple opening bands sound checking periodically. You are on tour right now, coming live from backstage.
I am. We're in Salt Lake City. It's almost 100 degrees. It's a little bit of a bummer, but the show's going to be sick because Salt Lake's always sick. Silverstein and Story of the Year have managed to pull a lot of folks to some shows, and it's been amazing. Denver last night was one of my favorite shows we played in a long time. Today, got to run down to this comic and toy shop with our guitar tech John, our drum tech TJ, and I picked up Star Wars Unlimited.
Ooh,
the turn-based card game, a starter pack with that, and we're gonna play some of that because John's super into Magic the Gathering, and then we got to talking, and then they're like, "Yeah, let's go get that and do some nerd stuff."
What a nerd, dude!
That
I mean,
is awesome.
seeing some of the footage from the tour online, it looks sick. We were just talking about this a little bit. You've got 3 giant LED walls, and what you produced, all the stuff that we're seeing on it during your set, right?
Yeah, so a lot of it is repurposed assets from the live stream shows that we did during the pandemic, the Ghost Signal stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And our buddy Jordan Phoenix, who has directed most of our recent music videos, he put together a lot of assets for that, or all of it for that. So I took that. I've done a bunch of re-editing, adding things, adding music video stuff. You've got some little Easter eggs in there, here or there. Ryan also shot some stuff years ago for the Wolves album, which we've pulled in. And it was a lot of work. I did a 27-hour editing marathon leading up to the first show. I slept an hour and a half before the first show. So there's a lot of stuff going on in life, and being at home and trying to get ready for the tour, I just ran out of time. So it was rough, but so worth it, because now every night we're up there, I turn around and I see that, and it's like, damn, we can't go back to just normal stage lights and crap. It's got to be a damn movie behind us. So
sick, man. Have you had anybody have a lockdown camera running video on it for you to see what it looks like?
No, I keep meaning to do that. I brought a GoPro to put back in front of house, just so we can, at least have a reference to take notes and, make changes throughout the tour. But
yeah,
I just haven't done it yet because procrastination is my middle name.
All right. Well, if you're coming out to the show, run some video for your boy. He wants to see what it looks like.
Yeah. Give me some reference, folks.
Yeah.
That's pretty great. So all roads lead to San Diego Comic-Con, which has started officially today. Yesterday was preview day.
Yeah.
Jason, you're going to be there for most of the weekend. We have Mosh Heisley tomorrow night. Then Adam, you guys are playing at the Observatory on Saturday in San Diego, and then Long Beach Warped Tour on Sunday with Nick, who is playing a show tonight, which is why he can't be here. It's a busy couple days.
It's a very busy few days. I am going to try to make it to some San Diego Comic-Con on Saturday, but the way our schedule is every day, we've got an early sound check, and then we have a meet and greet VIP thing. Oh, by the way, the VIP package, the merch that comes with it, our buddy Zach the Maker made all of that. And
it looks amazing.
It looks so sick. Yeah.
It's so good, dude. He killed it. So that's always at 4:45 in the afternoon, and then we play at either 8:30 or 9:30 or something. So it's one of those schedules that I just don't have a long stretch to do something. So if it'll be I could get there early and then get there after the meet and greet or something, maybe a couple, we'll see what happens. We'll see how it shakes out. There's also special stuff happening that we need to prepare for that might affect my schedule as well.
That's crazy. And it's crazy because I know it's going to happen, and I'm very excited for it. So again, as we said, if you're at Warped Tour on Sunday, make sure you can see the stage when Story of the Year comes out. As I'm looking at our background, a big shout to Roosevelt, who Jason and I counted yesterday, almost 14 new pieces at San Diego Comic-Con alone, exclusively within the Star Wars line. And then today dropped a crispy new collection with maybe one of my favorites in a long time, which is the Lando
Oh yeah.
parasail shirt that he wore when he lost the Falcon. I'm like, everything about that is calling my name, especially it's a perfect summer shirt. So Justin, John, the rest of the crew, congratulations on a double launch this weekend. But in all this busyness, we were talking, I finally saw The Odyssey. This is a small little film,
little bit one.
a little project Christopher Nolan's been cooking up. And Jason has been seeing this thing in his backyard at work for how many months now?
Oh, it's been a while. Well, I mean, we started working on marketing assets for it just before the Super Bowl. We did one 60-second spot for that, and then it's been drips and drops up until maybe the last like 2 months solid. Really hit it solid. You know, it's funny though. I saw some videos recently where, you know, they did some pickup shots of the ship in the water on the back lot here at Universal, and some folk there are actually some houses like that sort of overlook that area, and I think just regular private citizens were hanging out on their back porch, like looking at Odysseus' ship, you know, just pretty insane. So
it's
like
amazing. And part of this conversation that we had talked about was in the time that we have discussed the cinematic experience of going to a movie and enjoying cinema as its original intention of seeing it on the biggest screen you can. IMAX is obviously a big conversation about the Odyssey. And in this one in particular, it kind of started this conversation that we've been having for a while, where even going all the way back to Project Hail Mary back in March, it is a crazy year for movies, both of all different sizes, all different stories, but most importantly, what seems to be performing and what doesn't seem to be performing. And we are talking about is the idea of an epic movie, a cinematic experience, a movie theater experience. Are people saying this is what we've come to remember about movies, and that's why we'll go to the theater for certain movies, and we're not seeing the excitement for certain franchises, whatever that is? We talked about this. Mando and Grogu underperforms at the movie theater, but then is number one on streaming as of last week and this week. So what are we talking about here? What is the idea? Is it that, as I saw a really great article today that said the fans want movies made the hard way, which is not relying on CGI, which, Adam, you have a lot of thoughts on that, because the idea of CGI being no CGI isn't actually no CGI.
Right.
But the idea of what have we come to expect in terms of saying this is a movie theater experience? What do those things take? Let's discuss this.
I think, Jason, I have a lot of thoughts. I want to hear your immediate reaction to that. And there are also things that I'll come back and ask you directly, but just to like set the stage, I think there is no easy answer to this.
Mm-hmm.
It's not simple. It's very nuanced. There are so many confounding factors in what's successful or what's considered successful, or what people do and don't want to go see at a theater, what they do and don't, decide to just wait for to catch on streaming. And it's hard to tease out all of those confounding factors and really get down to something, because we're also dealing with like incomplete and often faulty or misreported information. It's an ongoing conversation within the industry, of course, just like music, figuring out what works and what people are willing to show up for and this and that, and how to make the industry work. And then there's the conversation within the fandom and critics and all the other media. We're not going to have an answer in this conversation, but we're going to talk about it and try to get down to it based on how we experienced each of these films and what we've learned about them behind the scenes.
Yeah. If any of us had the definitive answers, we would all be living in much larger homes.
Yes.
We'd have
executive producer.
We'd be living in a different state.
Several more Ferraris. Yeah, I think that, we obviously the angle that we're taking here is talking about, VFX versus quote unquote real production, real set pieces, real locations, putting your actors in the environment versus films that maybe rely more heavily on VFX. I unfortunately don't think that the answer is that simple. I think that what we're seeing is that people are craving more uh, authentic stories, original stories. And the only reason that I say that is because, we can talk about the success of things like The Odyssey, which definitely was all real, or at least as real as possible as far as, using actual set pieces and locations. But also you look at things like, of course, Backrooms and Obsession, which aren't necessarily, like effects driven films, but they did have a very unique, compelling, and original story that got people out of their house to get into the theater to, make sure that they don't miss what's in the zeitgeist right now. So I think that overall what we're seeing is people just want to have that authenticity. And, maybe that's maybe that's something that's left over from COVID, whenever people, were kept from, having, real experience,
Mhm.
and they're just sort of changing the way that they think about the way they consume media these days.
Jason, what is ironic actually, and I think there's another layer to it that we have to acknowledge, is that you mentioned original stories. What's funny is like arguably the oldest story
The original story.
that we can think
Yeah,
of
right.
is the one that's killing the box office right now. But the originality, the original story that I think has people showing up is Christopher Nolan's approach to storytelling. And, granted, this wasn't a Tenet style, like, simultaneous, like forward and backward time kind of crazy thing. But he did do that Nolan thing to some degree, in the way he approached telling this classical mythology. Whereas I think you could put any other, pick any other pretty big name director, do the Odyssey, and we wouldn't have half the number of people showing up. So it's like the story of Christopher Nolan is as important as the story of the Odyssey.
Let's go back for a second when we think about the idea of cinema as epicness, right? And you can't talk about epic cinema without Star Wars. In the opening shot of how the heck did they get these spaceships in here? How did they film the trench run? How did they do all this stuff? Was quite literally at the time epically thought of. Real props. We made new camera systems to be able to get this idea of something that you've never seen before.
Yeah.
Fast forward to Terminator. We have Stan Winston Studios doing things again that we have never seen before. That is our sense of epic, that we're like, how did they get computers to make a T-1000 walk through bars while he was made out of metal and then turn into a man nearly seamlessly? Then we get into a giant T-Rex breaking out of a paddock. That is a real thing that they make, right? And you skip over all these things until we get to maybe what I would say Lord of the Rings. I think we talk about Lord of the Rings as quite literally designed to be shot like an epic. We're using techniques like a split diopter, which shows how, the classic scene of Frodo or whoever, Samwise, looking back at the giant ring that Peter had made, that literally was that they made a giant ring just for one shot, right? And they're using frame of reference, they're using forced perspective to get small people to look huge against Gandalf. And you're doing all these things that quite literally take so much more time to figure out how to do practically. And then we get into, of course, even just talking about this year, Christopher Nolan has been known to do a mini A-bomb explosion. He's crashing 747s into terminals and blowing them up. He has become known as the director that goes all the way. And so when we think about the idea of epic cinema and going CGI, no CGI, whatever these things are, we're comparing them in terms of saying we have Project Hail Mary that could have very easily had one of their main characters just be CGI, but did we get a better performance out of Ryan Gosling as Dr. Raylan Grace, because he had something to play off? two movies that relied pretty heavily on CGI, as amazing as they were, Mando and Grogu, which obviously we were a big fan of, and Supergirl, both kind of got smoked at the box office.
Yeah.
In comparison to now, where this was the second largest opening for a Christopher Nolan film, I'm assuming since The Dark Knight. And it makes us look at it and go, this was a non-IP movie. Truly, it's it's actually been done before. But when we think about it, what are we, what are some of the takeaways of saying, is it because they went for it? Did the scale translate to people saying, I have to go see this? This looks like a can't miss cinematic event.
So I guess it's almost like a chicken or egg sort of a problem, in that, is it, and I'm going to try to slow down so I don't confuse myself, because I swear I had a point. Is it the practical nature of the story elements that the audience is attracted to, or is it that the production decided to invest and take a harder road, spend more money to have those practical things that just inherently make it a more attractive production to begin with? Does that make sense?
Yes, but I think the biggest thing in this case, aside from the fact that they essentially had a blank check, as Christopher Nolan does every time.
Yeah.
It's the story again of Christopher Nolan, and there's a lot of mythology about Christopher Nolan as a filmmaker. Ironically, in this, or I guess perfectly in this mythological tale that he's putting on the silver screen, with the Odyssey. Because there are two Christopher Nolans. There's the one that will fully lean into CGI and talk about it, and visual effects and CGI. There's a very blurry line between the two, and it's an arbitrary line, because there's no strict definition of what's just visual effects, whether it's analog or digital compositing, and what is computer graphics. Because you take a bunch of practically filmed elements and you start to composite them together digitally, and when does it become CGI? When does all of the digital artistry that it takes to stitch these things together make it so far removed from its original photographed state that it might as well be CGI? There's no line there for visual effects artists, because the end goal is the end goal, not the end goal is the final thing that's on screen. It's not to prove something. It's not to take a stand on one side or the other, of this cultural debate. It's to make the best looking thing, and who gives a shit how we get there? If it looks incredible in the end and no one can tell the difference, they've won. They've succeeded. So, I mean, we can pull up some things here and look at stuff, but I guess the best place to go really learn about this from someone who is a visual effects artist in the industry is a YouTube channel called The Movie Rabbit Hole. I've referenced it many times. The series is called No CGI is Really Just Invisible CGI. And he talks about all of the big blockbuster movies from the past 10 or so years. And then, of course, it goes all the way back with some more historical reference going back to the beginning of digital filmmaking. And he just keeps dunking over and over and over on the press that just regurgitate bullshit, on the movie studios that try to hide the fact that they're doing CGI, showing, number one, that they're full of shit, either on purpose because they know what they're talking about and they're trying to hide it, or two, on the receiving end, people don't know shit and try to talk about it confidently. And also to bring some respect to the very, very, very talented hundreds and hundreds of visual artists often that work on these films. And I know that Christopher Nolan understands all of that, but in one breath, he'll praise the VFX artist and talk about, I really wanted to do this in CGI because I knew it would be the only way that would work. You can give an acceptance speech at a visual effects award show, and then on the other hand go, we did this completely practically because that's the only way to do it, because that's what gets the clicks. That's what works in the press, that's what gets people to show up in some ways. So it's a nuanced conversation.
Let's
End rant.
let's reference some production budgets real quick, just so that people have an idea of what, you know, we're talking about pretty much epic movies as they were marketed in terms of both the size of the story, the scale of the story, what they wanted people to take away from it. So the Odyssey comes in at 250 million for a production budget. Now, when you see the movie in almost 3 hours of it, they are in different locations. They are on real ships. They are crashing giant. They are tearing down Troy. They are lighting everything on fire, and they are going all over what seems like literally the planet to shoot these different scenes. I can see exactly where all 250 million went, and also the amount of practical effects that they used that we're going to get into in a little bit. But I think 250 million is something to keep in mind if you have seen this. And of course, there will be spoilers for the Odyssey if you haven't been spoiled over the last 100 years. Mandalorian and Grogu comes in at
4,000 years.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Mandalorian and Grogu is 166 million, which is actually quite low for Star Wars. It was actually one of the lowest theatrical films ever for Star Wars at 166 million. Project Hail Mary, interestingly enough, we're talking about IP, was based off a very popular book, Amazon Layup. Production budget for Project Hail Mary was 248 million. So a movie that largely happens inside of 4 rooms on a spaceship ends up being almost as much as covering multiple places, multiple locations, and absolutely humongous set pieces. Top Gun Maverick, that we would also say is an epic movie. And one of the, to your point, Adam, one of the conversations about saying we filmed it all practically. Did we?
Maybe not.
Sure about that? Are you sure about that? It comes in at 170 million, which was actually about the same as DC's Supergirl that just came out a couple weeks ago. And it's going to be in streaming soon. That got kind of annihilated at the box office.
But I love it. By the way, for the record, I love that movie. It's
Supergirl.
Great. Yes.
Okay. See, and this is what we're trying to figure this out.
So I think the Project Hail Mary thing is also a very meta story kind of situation. You know, Andy Weir, incredible author, you know, he wrote The Martian, and the anticipation for the next adaptation on the big screen was so huge that that creates the epicness around it. You know, like you said, it's aside from a few like incredible wide shots of the scale of, you know, the Earth ship coming to the alien ship, it's a bunch of interiors, you know.
Yeah.
So the epicness is really, I think, the story, like the idea of contacting alien life. It's all wrapped up in like how we perceive that more than, you know, they didn't make Lawrence of Arabia, you know. They did it in a bunch of sound stages with, yes, a bunch of practical puppets and things, but also, like, I would love to see the breakdown of what they actually spent on VFX across who knows how many different VFX houses across how many different countries, because you know what, I would equate it probably more to The Force Awakens in terms of their approach with that, and maybe we'll get into the details once we start looking at the images here, but it always is. It's never just practical, and it's never just CGI. I mean, sometimes it just is. And it's never just forced perspective or this or that. The secret to selling visual effects and selling otherworldly things to the viewer is to keep people guessing. If it's CGI the whole time, eventually you're going to see like, yep, there goes more CGI. Yep, there's more of it. But if you're bouncing back and forth in one sequence between a puppet and a fully CG, hand puppeted, fully CG character, and then a mix of the two, and it's shot to shot, you keep the viewer guessing, and that's how it works. Like that's when it really fucking lands. It's not the all puppet thing. Honestly, when it's all puppets, at some point you go, "Oh, that's funny. That sure is a puppet." Yep,
yeah,
you know
it's true.
What I mean?
And you know,
or at least I do.
I think there were some really great examples of that in Mando and Grogu, going back and forth between those things. I recall a scene whenever Grogu is in the swamp talking to the old creature there, that the character's name escapes me right now. And Embo
scared?
yeah, right. Okay, so Embo shows up and he hides behind that crate.
Yeah.
In that moment, you can see it's puppet Grogu,
Mm-hmm.
but his eyes are VFX because it has that little judder, that little like back and forth that really
Right.
brings everything alive. But it's like the melding of the two, and it
Right.
works. I mean, that's where the magic is.
Right. And Adam, to your point, The Force Awakens had a somewhat staggering production budget of 500 million, which is it's a couple of bucks. And most recently, as of our event this weekend, Doomsday is coming at about 400 million. Now, with the additional marketing, brings it up to about 300 million. So their production budget is $700 million for this movie. So if this movie doesn't make billions of dollars, it's a hard pill to swallow.
Yeah.
But when we think about it, we're going to get into this, but like we think about it from that standpoint of saying, have people in some sense almost gotten used to going a giant production budget? I don't care if it doesn't seem like it's epic. And that
do you think there's maybe like an adverse effect of knowing the budget? It's like so much more public knowledge. They're like, oh, this is going to be a fucking CGI slugfest. Here comes some bullshit. You know what I mean?
It is interesting because like the reason I think in some ways, I think it's the strongest film. We've talked about this. The reason that none of the Jurassic movies to me have really like moved me in a sense of being like, that was insane, is because in some ways I know that they don't make dinosaurs anymore.
They do a little bit.
They don't make dinosaurs like they used to, man.
No, but you understand what I'm saying, right? Like there is no giant T-Rex that's grabbing people. There is no giant T-Rex that's swimming in the water. They chose to do that. ILM did an amazing job on it. But I'm just saying from my standpoint, I know that they didn't, there is no, and part of the marketing, Jason, please back me up on this. Part of the marketing for the Odyssey was that they leaked how they're doing. Like when the story is so well known, you can share that there's a Cyclops in it, and you can share that we made the Cyclops using a puppet, and we actually made a Greek warrior that is literally edible for when we put it in our mouth and rip it apart. Like and they're sharing all that ahead of time because they're like, we want you to see the movie, but that's part of the marketing budget at this point, and that's part of the marketing assets to let people know we win all the way.
Yeah, it really adds to the lore. I think that a lot of that stuff didn't really start to come out until after the film was released.
But even within this time, though, right? The movie's only been out for 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's been like a week. Yeah, week or two. You started seeing those things, and
Yeah.
I you know what? There were a few things. Actually, the one of the things that we're going to touch on here later was something that I didn't realize was a practical effect in how they achieved it. And it's just it makes it so much more interesting, and it really makes you want to go and see it again. So
totally.
That's how that marketing works.
All right.
Well, let's get into some images here.
We got to look at this stuff.
Kick it.
Amaze. Why
So
so
here's
messy?
The puppeteer with the puppet, with the Rocky puppet.
This is James Ortiz. He did. He was the main puppeteer and also did the voice of Rocky. And I mean, obviously there was a VFX Rocky. There had to be.
Yep.
Yeah.
In certain scenes, but yeah, for the most part, everybody was interacting with a practical Rocky.
But there were so many times where it could just be a static puppet, a placeholder, something for Ryan Gosling to lock eyes with. I mean, very like Frank Oz with his hand up Yoda's ass kind of thing, where like there were times where the puppet would just sit there. And Frank's like, Mark, you're good to do a couple takes. My arm's about to fall off, So yeah, like acting against a static puppet is tough, but I guess just having that versus a tennis ball or like a tracking marker makes a lot of difference. But I mean, there were times I've seen a bunch of other VFX breakdowns where they fully did the puppeting and everything, but just based on the amount of things that they had to paint out, when it came down to it, they ended up replacing the whole thing.
Yeah, that sort of crystalline, like polygon suit that Rocky made for Grace whenever he went onto his ship. Also practical, which blew my mind. Had no idea.
And they also had a CG version of that. So
sure, yeah.
doing the old sleight of hand.
Yeah. So this is really cool. Yes, of course there are spoilers. Please, if you please come back and listen to this after you've gone to see
Yeah,
it, because
yeah.
you do need to go see it.
For
Yeah,
audio listeners, we're looking at a shot of the Cyclops puppet in
Yeah.
the cave. Yeah.
Yeah,
A giant
and
puppet.
a giant puppet. Now,
Giant marionette, I guess, right?
the
Yeah.
other part about this is that they had to bring this to this cave. They literally were flying up props in a helicopter to get them up to this perfect cave that Christopher Nolan loved. So even just getting the stuff there shows that they were not taking many shortcuts. I mean, this was literally the giant rock that they had to make to move up and down. I mean, pretty incredible in this sense. But you know, you felt it. You were being in that experience was like, this feels terrifying.
That said, the final product here. So this puppet is here for lighting reference. It's here for the actors to, have really nice, accurate eye lines to scale with how big the Cyclops would be. But this thing gets fully replaced by the CG.
Right.
I mean,
by the CG, but then also by an actor as well. The guy's name is Bill Irwin, known for his physical performance work. He also voiced and articulated TARS in Interstellar. Yeah. Here we can see on this next slide. This is something from the production where we can see this is probably. I mean, I this is conjecture, but this is probably some sort of amalgamation of the physical actor of Bill and some VFX work.
Yeah. So the giant Cyclops, again, for listeners, with a tiny soldier in his hand. Either this is a doll, which was then also probably replaced with CG because that actor has to, or that CG character has to move as he's getting picked up by the Cyclops and getting his head bit off. You got it, so they've got to animate that. And you've got a costume with like this, prosthetic skin, the lumpiness, the scars, the Cyclops thing. This, I'm guessing, is like all three all at once.
Yeah, it's got to be.
Yeah, because
I'll also point out that his pinky is out as he's about to eat this guy, so he's a fancy Cyclops.
So
He's got a complex palette.
Yeah, and so I watched it behind the scenes today where they made essentially a 6 scale Greek person with a literally almost think like a candy skeleton inside of it.
Wow.
Then actually painted essentially with edible I don't know if it's whatever fondant or whatever, but they made almost like a 3D printed version with blood filled in it that was probably whatever corn syrup, and then he actually bit it and ripped the parts off so that you could see all these parts. So even if they replace it, there is still reference of them saying this is what it's going to look like. So it wasn't just hold your hand up and take a bite out of something. This was done in some regard.
And this kind of approach is something that has come from now, almost 30 years of trial and error, learning best practices, because, Lucas went into the Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones trying to do as much digitally as possible, putting them on green screens as often as possible. And everyone at ILM, everyone involved, learned what works and what doesn't from that process. And then you've got similar things in the Lord of the Rings films and all of this kind of stuff. And you get to the point where you realize, yes, we can make anything you can imagine digitally, but the best informed art is with the best possible reference material on set, lit correctly. This, what this reminds me of? I bet this is very similar, and I'd love to see like a final real breakdown. I bet the combination of techniques and everything and the final edit, what's what from shot to shot, is probably not so different from like, I would say like a modernized a digital version of the Rancor scene in Return of the Jedi.
Oh, yeah, good call.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so we have Matt Damon on rear projection or a volume with the battle in the background, I'm assuming. Is
I
that correct?
think this might be Yeah, this might
production
be a
style.
composite. Yeah, this might
Yeah.
not be actually from the feature itself, but it is from the scene whenever he's in the forest fighting the giant soldiers, the Laestrygonians,
Yeah.
as he and his men interact with. If you've seen one of the posters for the film, has these giant silver armored warriors. They kind of have a Mando looking helmet on with their face blacked out, getting ready to deal out some punishment. What we found out recently was that this was shot with forced perspective, but also with stunt people for the Laestrygonians that were all above, 6'5", 6'8", almost 7 feet tall. And then the Greek soldiers were shot with small folks, people that were 5 feet and under. So it really sort of exaggerated that forced perspective that they were shooting with.
And in this image here, this is Odysseus' stunt double, who he has now said they had a stunt double come in and they had, they shot the forced perspective, and this person had the best arms I've ever seen,
Yeah.
and also happened to be a woman, in this sense of like this is Peter Jackson level trickery in terms of like
Just straight Lord of the Rings stuff. Yeah.
100%. And honestly, to give credit to Jon Favreau, a lot of the opening scenes of Elf actually were done the same way. The same when he's sitting among the other elves and he's huge and he's sitting on this, that was all forced perspective as well. So this is not a new technique, but when it's utilized well, it's incredibly effective.
Yeah, it's a funny story. You might see it floating around on social media now. Matt Damon was on Happy, Sad, Confused with Josh Horowitz, and Josh was kind of commenting on how good Matt Damon's biceps looked. And he's like, well, credit where it's due. Some of the best looking biceps in there were not mine. They were my female stunt performer double. So
it's awesome.
That's her there.
Hey, real quick before this next image, before we talk about this,
Sure.
Midwest B2 Emo in the chat says, I wonder how much Grogu is responsible for the renewed push for practical non-human main characters. Good question. Good thing to think about. But also, if you go back and watch season 1, especially of The Mandalorian, there's a lot of digital Grogu in that. A lot. It's probably half and half.
Right.
Just throwing that out there.
That's true.
All right, here we have the Fantastic Four.
Well, this is from Doomsday.
Oh, okay, but we have members of the Fantastic Four
Yep.
in this shot with the Wakandans and with was that Bucky and some other folks?
Yeah, it looks like Ant-Man or someone next to it. So this is basically
Hawkeye, maybe,
assembling. This is from the trailer where M'Baku and Thing meet for the first time. Great little scene, but certainly now we're getting into this idea of there is no practical Thing suit. It is the same way that I believe they filmed Zeb. So there is an actor that is in some kind of suit reference,
motion capture suit,
and in this sense, Eben Moss Bacharach there is no Thing suit. Like he has a thing that he wears and he's tall and that's it. But it's more similar to how they filmed Thanos with Josh Brolin. There was no practical Thanos suit.
And for the record, again, Thanos looks incredible, man. I think he looks incredible. But this is almost definitely on a green screen. They almost definitely have an actual sand, ground foundation that they're standing on, right? But a bunch of background replacement. And it's this huge, epically wide shot of, it looks like a big wave coming, and there's like the scale of it is big, but people don't feel it the way they feel what Nolan's doing right now or this or that. And we're here to figure out why.
Yeah, here's another shot from the same trailer, more of our heroes assembled. We have some of the new Avengers there, all of the Fantastic Four in some sort of facility. Alan Cummings, who plays Nightcrawler, who's going to be in this film, had a little blurb out there on the internets where he spoke about his process on this film and talked about how isolating it was, I think was the word that he used. But it seems like there were a lot of these actors' parts that were shot separate from everybody else. And everybody was composited in separately after the fact. So it's hard to tell if these, I don't know how many are here, 12 maybe actors in this frame, if any of them are actually there with each other. It's so interesting. And I'm not saying it's a good thing or a bad thing. It's just a thing. It's
Yeah.
another way to create film. I mean, for full disclosure, I already bought my ticket for this film, so I'm in. I'm seeing it. But I
It worked
yeah,
on him.
it worked. I mean, yeah, I'm gonna go see it. Why not? But
Yeah, I'll be there.
but it's interesting that there is this conversation that's happening out there right now in the audience where people are sort of having, it's not a huge backlash, but there's a maybe a mild revulsion to the way that it looks compared to what we're seeing in films like The Odyssey right now. So it's interesting.
Well, and also you look at like the new thing that everyone is trying to capture within Marvel teasers, right? Is they're looking. It happened very recently with Spider-Man, where Spider-Man is jumping against the hand, and in the blocking of the shot, it would make sense that there seems to be another character that's above him.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, is it Hulk? Is it Jean Grey? Whoever, the speculation goes wild. But this is another one of those shots in the trailer where people are trying to witch hunt this and say they're looking at a character that's not there. And some are like, is it Loki? Is it whatever? And what we're getting at is not to speculate about the Doomsday, because at this point I'm going to see it anyways, but I'm not going down theory rabbit holes on this.
Yeah, right.
But when they are composited, it's almost literally like a turn that button off level of how they can remove someone in some of these scenes, which I think is really pretty interesting to give the idea that, yeah, half of these people aren't actually there.
And what's funny is with trailers, as you know, Jason, being a trailer mixer, you get so deep into the trailer process before, VFX are probably the very last thing needed to get it out the door. Like, how many trailers have you mixed where you've got placeholder shots where there's almost nothing there, but they know what's going to be there, so they do the edit, etc.
Yeah, absolutely. As a mixer, late nights more than likely are due to one of two things. It's either waiting for graphics or waiting for shot replacements, because they've been, our editors have been cutting with dailies and things that have unfinished VFX. So they're doing, temporary VFX fixes for things that'll be for marketing that won't actually be finished for real for, could be months down the line. I'm not saying that's the case here, but it is common.
So it's funny that there are some things that they're rushing to just finish, to get it to finish enough to get in the trailer. Because that's the other thing. A lot of VFX artists are like, oh shit, what's on my plate now? The trailer's coming out when? Okay, I guess I'll finish that shot now. Like, I've heard that directly from people in VFX. But then the added layer is, oh, we have this shot and you need to finish it, but you're going to finish a different version where you're actually taking out this actor who was there while you're also adding this, you're compositing in this other actor. It's like they're coming from both ends, and it's all on this crazy marketing schedule, and everything has to match up with the production schedule, and it's just, movie making is hard, man.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and that was, I remember when we're speaking in Marvel right now. I do remember in Deadpool Wolverine when they showed some of the sets of in typical Deadpool humor, the Crash 20th Century Fox logo in the void, and they made that stuff, which I think is part of why Fallout was popular, was because they were making this stuff, and that almost gets a certain part of the internet riled up to say it's real, right? And as awesome as Doomsday is projecting to be, I'm still I feel whelmed at this point, because we have had movie after movie after movie of the most epic CGI slugfest we've ever seen, to the point where there is nothing in here that looks that interesting to me, besides that we haven't seen really Dr. Doom yet. And that comes down to costumes. And I think that's really interesting in that sense of there is no ship in Marvel besides maybe the Milano that I really care about. There's no interior in any of the ships that I think is that cool, because it almost doesn't feel, I guess in my mind, like the Milano felt kind of like a punk rock giant stoner van that the Guardians of the Galaxies drive around in, but like it felt the most like the Millennium Falcon to me. And the fact that I know the Millennium Falcon is a real set compared to whatever half of the Marvel universe is flying around in, hard to describe what that does to my brain, but is that part of like what people are feeling overall?
Yeah. This last shot that we're looking at here, we have Chris Evans and Chris Hemsworth facing each other on a set that seems to look like could be a ship, to your point, Mike, or a space station or something. We have some oval windows that are looking out into space. I'll eat my hat if this is a practical set.
I would assume that there are practical elements. I can see that hallway in the window, everything that's sort of tan colored. There being a very simple version of that on set, and then it's all replaced. Yeah. Much like the Dejarik arena had just the very basics in Mando and Grogu to give the scale of the room, how to move throughout it. You could see the shape. Do you have that image here, actually?
I don't believe so.
ILM has released some like befores and afters. I think this one just dropped today or the day before. But you can see the Dejarik chessboard sort of thing on the floor. It's there, and what they shot. The doorways are just some LED panels with some vertical red lines to cast a little redness on. And it's a very simple sort of arena wall. And it looks like it was almost all replaced. But still, they created the physical space to work within. And I would assume that this is a similar version. Like above that line of the tan stuff where it's a bluish, the cooler ceiling kind of, and the light coming down through.
Right.
I bet that's blue or green all the way up from there.
It's so interesting that, you know, the VFX supervisors have the foresight to be able to speak to the special effects and, you know, prop builders to be able to know, like, this is what we need. We need you to just do this. We're going to take care of the rest. And that's like having a vision for something, you know, so far ahead of time, like during productions. It's pretty interesting to think about.
Just to back up everything I said, I could be completely wrong. It could be 100% green screen, but it's so, right. But it's so good now. Like, who knows, man? Here's
our boy, our big slug boy, in that Dejarik arena. Fully VFX character from start to finish, and also a big, I'm going to say a big character. Of course, he was a big character, a main character.
Yeah.
I think that all of us, I don't want to speak for you guys, but I'm pretty sure that we were kind of surprised as to the extent to which that he was utilized in this film.
Absolutely.
As an animated character. Pretty interesting.
And in this setup, go ahead.
I was going to say, and to Nick's point, he was like, they put Rada everywhere. They put him in sand. They put him in a ship. They put him in the arena. They put him racing on a basically a Corvette to escape. They did everything with him, which is kind of that's your flex, right? We are not hiding CGI behind rain and darkness anymore.
So that arena shot. One more look at it. You can see the little bit of redness behind his tail. You can see the wall, the perimeter. So the ground is real, the wall is real, but it's much different. It's not this concrete texture. That's all digitally replaced. Those two lights that are just above the wall, those are real. So the rim light, the sort of the edge of his right shoulder and head, the human stand-in who just had these sort of like what would you say that it's like the handles, but just not maybe without the axe blade, right? So there's some lighting reference there, and then they would bring in occasionally a model head and some arms, and I would assume they jump in before they start shooting, and just like they do in HDRI, which is a gray ball and then a mirror ball, they put those in, they turn them around back and forth to get the lighting reference to then later use when they're creating the lighting for the scene. They would do that with the head, with the arms, and then actually seeing the light hit the stand-in in real time does inform, bare minimum, like how to expose it, the direction of the light, etc.
Right.
But But it looks like an Epic Arena, but it also is obvious that it's CG because this creature doesn't exist in the real world. So talking about the psychological
What are you talking
calculations
about,
here,
man?
like we know that a giant slug with a six-pack doesn't exist. So no matter what, I think our brains just call bullshit.
But again, it's interesting talking about the Odyssey again. The pigmen, the transformation was clearly CG, but it felt so. I don't know if it's how they decided to shoot it, how they did the hands were looking like clay, and Cersei's just like working the animal out of these guys. It was very visceral in the sense that like it could have very easily been. I guess it felt more American Werewolf in London to me than it did Underworld or whatever, where the classic transformation process.
Mike, we'll have to follow back up with this, but I actually had heard that scene was actually done practically as well. That there were some custom appliances and prosthetics and animatronics that were used, and you can see everything's all in very tight close up.
Yeah,
you only see it in glimpses, and then
obscured by the witch or whatever, as she moves back and forth, and
yeah, and they were made for her to be able to articulate those things and make it look like she was sculpting them into pigs. Wild, right?
It was. I was watching that and I was like, "Yo, this is gnarly."
There's a little bit of like, Spielberg in Jaws or in Jurassic Park kind of approach there, where like you want to hide it enough that like working within the limitations ends up. When you it's like what do they call it, the damn it, the paradox of choice.
Sure.
Jason, this with audio and everything, that the more options you have, the harder it is to nail down something that really works. But when you work within limitations, you maximize those limitations, and then great art seems to somehow come from that.
Yeah, absolutely. Here's our Hutt twins. They looked phenomenal in this too. We got to see them move in ways that we've never seen Hutts move before, which is pretty cool.
Didn't they all? They also did a miniature within this throne room, just like they did the front door that Tippett did.
Yes, I believe so.
Okay. Here's our buddy Paul Darnell, just to kind of juxtapose all of these VFX heavy characters with other more traditional practical effects used in Mando and Grogu. So Paul, here we see two photos of him taking some selfies in Droid Gatra costumes. First of all, I don't know about you, my mind was blown whenever I found out that these were actually stunt performers. These were stunt actors in droid costumes, which is crazy. But yeah, here he is in two different roles. One is kind of a worked up B1, and the other one is a super battle droid. And yeah, he was out there actually running through their forests of Nal Hutta as a droid, practically.
But then, of course, mixed in with some digital characters in the wide shots, and lots of replacement. Like, are the arms that thick in the final, or is this reference and then they made the arms slimmer, kind of like Embo?
I don't know. I hope we get more of the maybe the effects of what they chose to do, or is this just stand-ins for background? And it's cool that they went to this level. This is a legacy effects project, in the same way that Thingergy did a lot of the practical armor. And as I'm watching the Odyssey too, like in contrast to this, like I thought the Odyssey had the armor was actually underwhelming to me. It almost looked foam, and almost looked, it looked leather and all those things, but it was not the Troy level epicness that I remember. It was not regal in the sense. It felt very lived in, and it felt smaller in scale, because I was looking at that a couple of times being like, that almost looks like it's foam.
Yeah, it seemed foam.
Yeah, it was interesting. So just looking at these two characters of the droids, and the texture and the details and the grit, I mean, Legacy did an incredible job on these, even if they were replaced.
Yeah, and Mike, you can see a couple of these. We were recently keyed into the idea that these Droid Gatra costumes were made to be modular. So you can see
Right.
that from his torso down, he's actually the same. And now
Yeah.
he has a new upper body on there that makes him a totally different character. So they were
Amazing.
able to be efficient in that way, make a bunch of characters with less costumes. Here's another example of practicality on the set of Mando and Grogu. Here we have Din with the little baby and Jon Favreau. Boy, I'll tell you what, man. I mean, he and whenever I say he, I mean Grogu. He really did emote for a hunk of rubber that was being articulated by electronics and probably also hands and things. Really did emote in a pretty amazing way.
Yeah, 100%.
It is so wild how, yes, they're working with like some really next level animatronics and puppeteering equipment here, but like how it's crazy to me how much it is obviously a puppet, but how much our brains assign agency to that puppet because of the way it moves, and that
Yeah.
comes from people's hands.
Yeah.
Even if they're operating a joystick, that somehow translates even like 2 degrees of separation from a real thing. It's like hands to a joystick to an animatronic. It still translates somehow. And that's kind of what I was saying. And, Jason, you posted a reel about it, about the bias. We've decided that puppets are real. Like, we know that's a puppet, but it just still works. Like, somebody could put their hand in a sock and put 2 googly eyes on it and put it on a kid's show, and we're like, damn,
He's a character.
what a great lesson you've taught me today,
That's-
sock.
Right.
That's lamb,
You know,
that's
like-
lamb chop, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
That's
That's Sesame Street.
The only thing that Grogu does that I perceive as being, kind of a little hokey is whenever you see him walk. But for whatever
Yes.
reason, the way that it hits me is it looks cute. It's like a cuteness thing. I don't know
Yeah.
what it is that I give that such a pass. But yeah, it works. And you know what? I mean, there's a long history of this in Star Wars in particular. I mean, not the least of which are droids.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
BB-8's 2 circles, and he's just got so much personality. It
works.
It's really
Yeah,
amazing.
and it's. Go ahead.
Here's the thing that I thought of after our last conversation about this in Rada and everything. We all agree that this puppet just somehow becomes alive. But also, you look at Dobby in Harry Potter. When that little digital guy dies, oh my God, did I bawl my eyes out. And 100% just ones and zeros, pixels. And it just worked. Like, so again, I don't think it's a one or the other thing. It's like anything else in filmmaking and songwriting and storytelling, anything. You either do it in a way that works, or either it works or it doesn't. It doesn't matter if it's made if it's hand molded turd turned into the shape of a character, or it's 100% digital, or it's this, multi-million-dollar animatronic puppet. Like, it kind of, the medium doesn't matter as much as I think we all try to act like it does.
Yeah.
That's true. And then, of course, closing it out, we have the legend himself, Frank Oz,
Right up Yoda's
Yes.
butt.
with the iconic Yoda puppet on Dagobah, with all these little hydraulic pumps and everything. I mean, it again, going back to the original epic, that was Star Wars. That was that, even before we were in the Harryhausen films and all that, like the space epic 2001 A Space Odyssey, of course, in its own way, but we had not seen it in a way like that until Star Wars had come out. And that is, and of course, the creatures, not in the same way that the Jim Henson style livable characters that were interacting as creatures with our main actors, but there really is something to going back and reminding ourselves that Star Wars is still one of the original epics.
Absolutely. And I can't wait to see what James Mangold is cooking up, if that's still going to happen. His Jedi origin story. which he has described as a biblical epic. So I think, although we're in a time of nothing but question marks when it comes to the future of Star Wars storytelling, as Kathleen Kennedy stepped down, and we're on to a new era, and who knows what's happening with Disney as we move past the second Bob Iger era. There's still stories left to be told that I think can and will be on that epic level that will capture the hearts and minds of people of all generations.
And I think it's going to start with Starfighter. I think based on what we've seen, what we have heard, we're going to different locations. We're doing all this stuff. There seems to be, to me, even if Sean Levy doesn't demand it in terms of his style of directing, I feel very hopeful that Starfighter is going to be a return to Star Wars epic, despite the epic amount of work that Mando and Grogu put out in terms of special effects. But I think Starfighter is going to be there. And I hope within the next couple of weeks, we have D23 around the corner. We're going to start to get a sneak peek. I think the idea that we're going to go into Doomsday and Disney's going to focus on that for a bit. And then Starfighter is coming right around the corner. Very exciting. What else we got going on? We're wrapping up. I miss you guys.
Miss you too, my friend.
Miss you too, buddy. Man, I can't wait to see some of that sweet Claudio Miranda footage.
Truly.
Oh my God. You know, I finally saw F1 for the first time a couple weeks ago.
I still haven't watched it.
Whoa.
It's pretty cool, man. You know what? The whole time you watch it, you're just going to be like, yes, Starfighter is going to be so sick.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Do some of that pilot shit, Gosling.
Yeah, man.
All right. This was going to be short, but it wasn't because we have strong feelings. As you can probably hear, I'm on tour. Like I said at the beginning, we've got another 2 weeks-ish left. So come out and see us. We'll be at Warped. We're making our way back east, south, go to a lot of places. And we're about to announce some more tour dates. I think Tuesday we're probably announcing that.
Yeah.
Fun stuff. Busy and fun.
Do you have a set time for Sunday yet in Long Beach?
We're playing in the evening. I know that.
Great.
Even to the bands, they don't give us absolute set times until the day of. So they just kind of give us a general window because we had to book press and whatever else. So
great. And then you and Silverstein in San Diego on Saturday. That's a sold out show now, I believe, right?
Yeah.
Sick.
Very excited.
Great.
Very happy.
That's going to be great. And we'll tease our crazy surprise again.
Yes.
That we don't know about. Swear we don't know about.
We don't know anything about it.
It's going to blow your mind.
To see here.
Yep.
All right. Everybody, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. It's been a while since we were live on YouTube, so thanks for joining us. A few people that, yes, fall tour, yes. Sorry, reading the chat here. So, everyone, again, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And until next time, may the force be with you. Thank the Maker is produced by Adam Russell and Jason Chiodo and edited by Jason Chiodo. If you enjoy the podcast, you can support us by leaving a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. Or you can support us directly at patreon.com/thankthemakerpod, where you can get access to our Discord server, exclusive content, exclusive merch, and more. Our patrons literally make Thank the Maker possible.